It's gonna be a tight squeeze for this fat ass. Hello, everybody. My name is Kat Katana. I am a nail press-on artist, designer. What do I do and what do I not do? I'm gonna put my Instagram handle here. You know when it pings up? Look at me being all YouTube. I'm loving it already. But I'm scared. This is my first ever video. And this was part of my 2022 goals. And why? Basically, I get loads of DMs about how I started, what I use, where I learn. And I thought, what better not than to create an open resource. And really how I began was finding YouTube videos telling me how, finding other nail artists on Instagram, and just starting from the bottom. And now we're here. And when I say I'm a nail press-on artist, I'm like, I am. That's actually a really good point. If any of you have like an inkling or a desire to go to that local crochet class with Joan, do it. From when we're at school, it's kind of like, okay, where do you want to go? Who are you? What do you want to do? And we can sometimes box ourselves into the things and the titles that we feel that we should do. There's a really amazing book called The Art of Creative Thinking, and it really opened and expanded my mind to it being a mindset and a way of thinking. You know, an artist in general could literally design a shoe, design a house, write a play. Definitely push yourself into all those little things that are just calling you because they're all signs. And this sign has literally ended me up here. I know that I will be making art, whether somebody looks at it or doesn't, until the day I die. So I was like, how should I structure these videos? And if you know me, it's never closed. And if it is around you, then can you guess? I am going to try and edit this for or on the week of Valentine's Day. And it's going to be around the theme of love, the essence of life. How you came into this world, what you are, and just free flow and just chat with you. So let's go. Okay, look at the flick of the wrist here. So this is the design that I'm saying that's by illustrator Hattie Stewart and her iconic heart, which I love. So we're just going to begin with the basic prepping of the nail, putting down the foundation for the work. So these are press-ons, coffin, but slightly pinched, from Nail Couture. Now these always have like a little bit of plastic on the end. So what I do is I go in with the 180 grit and then after the 220 grit file, just to make sure like everything is smooth, and then wipe them down with alcohol so there's no dust. So all the polishes that I'm using today are from Iconic. These are all hypoallergenic gels. I'm not sponsored. Maybe will be in the future though. And I'm going in with a Shine Like a Diamond Topcoat and a Ying White. I'm doing 2 layers of the white and then 1 layer of the top coat, and I am curing them all for 60 seconds. And I'm going in with my gloves. Always go in with your gloves, no matter, even if you see other nail techs not wearing gloves, wear them, because that's how you get allergies. I got them. It laid me down for 4 months. So this design, the heart, I feel like the heart really has like mixed feelings. Like sometimes you look at it and you're like, and then sometimes you look at it and you're like, that's so cringe. But to be honest, I feel like that's sometimes reflective of everybody's mental state. Like how you look at the heart reflects where you truly are, because honestly I think it's like one of the most beautiful symbols ever, but it's considered kind of like childlike. If you actually look at the organ and then you actually look at the shape, you're like, how did we go from here to here? So I tried to do some digging and I found out, and I love the way it actually said the evolution of the heart is unknown, which is great because we can just spit facts and be like, it's just somewhere in time and not really know how accurate that is. A city-state in northern Africa called Serene. Hopefully it's called Serene, Cyrene. And they basically had like a giant fennel that was associated with contraception and therefore sex. So they think that possibly one of like the botanical theories for why we have that, like, it's almost like an upside down pine cone for the heart, comes from there. But do you know what I absolutely loved? Like, I absolutely loved, there were like these heart-shaped cushions with arms. I think there was a star also, and these were like banging in the 90s. There was also like a snake from IKEA. I swear to God, I used to literally like lay in bed and have that little heart wrapped around me. Cute, kind of weird and kind of sad. After I've top coated everything, what I do, which I actually haven't seen anybody else do, but I think it's because my background is in illustration, is that I draw the outline of the design on every nail. So this basically helps me with the placement of the design and getting like the rough structure. I never go in freehand because I don't want to keep having to use acetone to wipe away when I make mistakes, which happens anyway, but this kind of limits the amount of mistakes if you draw it with pencil. This is a bit harder on black, obviously, but on most other colors, this actually works fine. So I got all the colors that I was going to use for the design, and I also mixed my red and made it a little bit brighter because it was giving me like, it wasn't giving me love, it was giving me excessive dark bleeding fresh wound kind of vibe. So here are my Amazon brushes. Really, with brushes, I don't think you need to be too precious. I feel like you can get brushes and you can cut them down so they're super thin for the really detailed work. I mixed all my colors out and I started with just outlining the heart. And then I went in with the white and then I went in with the black just to start beginning to see the basic shape. You know how I was saying about like the heart versus the organ, like flavoring? When you try an actual strawberry versus like anything that is scented like a strawberry, you're like, where have we got this from? This is like worlds apart. You know what? Do you know which one is quite, I always find the banana one quite accurate, but also I'm like, bananas are so fresh. The scent of banana is like off banana. It's that banana that's like ready for a banana bread or just ready for the bin. You know what I really miss actually? That was literally one of my favorite times of my life. My dad used to take me to the penny shop, the penny sweet shop, and that, I mean, we were not thinking about the effects of sugar in the 90s. And just like cartoons, everything was just so much more sweet. Even thinking about love and thinking about like what were the first sort of images that I was actually exposed to. I always noticed in cartoons, but it was always quite unhealthy. Like I always remember in like Hey Arnold, how like Helga always liked him, but they were both quite dismissive of each other. Was I actually like absorbing really unhealthy visuals of love from such a young age? I was reading a book recently that talked about attachment styles. So basically everybody is either a mix, you can also transform, of avoidant, anxiously attached or secure. And I basically found out that I was anxiously attached, but I think I'm moving out of that, just to let you know, for those people who are judging me. Okay, there's also the relationships you have with your parents which give you these attachment styles, but also I was thinking, is this supportive of the media around us and what we were absorbing as kids? Because I don't actually remember any cartoons that were like actually healthily loving each other. There was always like some element of, oh, I don't want you kind of thing. I think it was a magazine, but it was based on a cartoon and it was called Love Is. Oh my God, I remember that. And my cousin had the magazine and it was like, love is good communication, love is still loving them in the morning. Some of the things were like really sort of useless, but some of them were like so sweet in sentiment. I'm gonna put up a few just so you guys can see what I'm talking about and how sweet they actually were. But I mean, actually, maybe the morning one is quite accurate. Not to be stereotypical, but I do think that loving someone is loving them for their imperfections, not their perfections, right? And boy, can you see people's imperfections in the morning. No, it reminds me of that Thames song, Essence, where she's like, oh, what's it go? Say I don't need you in the morning, but I need you now. It's like, yeah, I don't need anybody in the morning. I want to be alone. Like, I'm a happy morning person, but if you're going to give me the bad vibes, it's like mornings alone where I can control and I don't need your energy. This is actually where I just finished outlining one. I do this often where I just do one nail. If it's kind of getting the same type of imagery, I'll just do one completely so I kind of know what shapes I'm gonna need and just get my hand like adjusted to moving to the design. So that one, you can see that I just literally completed it. I did all the like highlights, and now I'm gonna just go in and do the same process over the other four. You know what I've realized is that everyone does this little pinky thing when they do a design with their hand to like keep the balance. I can't do it, yo. I'm literally looking, like, as I narrate over this, I hold the brush and I hold pens like a bear, like in a fist. Like I've never, like the pen isn't going to get away from me ever. So same process. Yeah, like I said, same process for these four, but they're slightly different. I've switched my brush a couple of times because basically, for the bigger layers, I just go in with like a thicker so I can get more product in and go over larger areas. But it really does help, like I said, to cut down your brush for those really fine details that just like pre-packaged, when it arrives, that brush won't be that thin. But going back to the morning, I really feel like morning affirmations get my day right and keep my mind positive. And that was really the first time I think I ever sort of began any self-care journey, because it's funny, I didn't really have like a concept of what self-care was apart from just like a bath or buying, it sounds basic, but it's true, or like buying an outfit or something that makes you feel good. You know, even when you were younger and you were like upset with your mum, she'd be like, do you want a treat? And it would be like a Latina mum, a food related thing. Actually, what I realize is sometimes self-care and self-love is doing the things that don't always feel good because you're in like a subconscious pattern and you don't really understand that you have all these ways and behaviors that actually don't support the person you want to be. So affirmations were like a massive change in my way of thinking. Meditation, I haven't actually cracked yet, but I'm really trying. But there was a really interesting podcast, I'd recommend it, with Jay Shetty, and it basically said that meditation is not always, you know, to be hard on yourself and be like, oh, I couldn't concentrate, I couldn't do this morning, but more to use it also on the days that you can't concentrate as a gauge on where your mind is that day. So on those days, if you can't concentrate, then it's not a day to make big decisions, which I thought was like a less punishing way of viewing meditation if you're actually not used to that as a concept. So I actually think those are some things that I would recommend. I would say, hey, but let's not actually diss the bath. The bath is, but like just starting with affirmations, meditations, journaling, even if journaling isn't really your thing, I've also found like walking and sending voice notes is a really good like self-care tip, because you can literally walk and talk and just like touch base again with yourself and sort of where you're at, particularly if you've got any situations that are like coming up or really weighing on your mind. I would literally get that voice note out, speak, cry if you have to, let it all out. Going back to the design, here I then began to, after I'd finished the hearts and I'd put in all the little highlight details, I was like, okay, how can I switch this up? And one of the hearts had like these little legs with heels, which I loved. So I was like, I'm just going to put all these little legs flying in. So I went in with the dotted tool and then just to make the base of the shoe and then flicked the heels round. I think also going back to that, the idea of meditation and like acceptance, I think that's one of the biggest forms of self-love is also like acceptance of emotions. I think sometimes I just feel like we really need to connect back to the smaller things that we can appreciate in every single day. I was thinking the other day about things that I literally love. There are like really, like those small things that make the day like I literally love a coffee in the morning. Like, give me the caffeine, give me all the caffeine, my drug of choice. Putting on a fresh pair of socks and like after you've had a really long day and you're so tired, fresh bed sheets. I think sometimes as well, like in love in general, I can only speak for myself, but sometimes we treat ourselves a bit like the pauper. Like you do find some situations where people become when they are with another. But then there comes in this idea of mirrors that I've only sort of within the last 2 years really had a concept of. And it follows like the law of attraction, but also it just essentially means that what you are, you attract. And you can apply it really to anything and it makes so much sense because it's like vibrations. We're all vibrations and we're all like emitting something. It's the same as like, to put it in a really like basic way, it's like if you are to have an interaction with someone who seems to be negative, your instinct will either be to lash out, which probably isn't the best decision, or it will be to remove yourself from that environment. So either way, that is either giving you that repelling or negative vibration, or it's forcing you away from it. And that doesn't only come into just our overall attitude, it comes to our decisions, like our inherent self-worth. And I feel like I've really found this to be true. I can actually pinpoint a lot of the time my mental state by the conversations I'm having with someone or the people that I'm attracting into my life. Even sometimes when you have friendships that don't last or fade, which we also need to normalize, that sometimes happens when two people are just out of sync in thoughts, in feelings, in their vibration. So I'm really, really finding this to be true. This idea of like being more conscious about who you are and what you're putting out into the world and what you want around you. There can be moments in your life when you can feel like thinking about yourself or prioritizing yourself in all situations is selfish, because there has to be this element of community and cooperation and empathy. But I think there can also be a line crossed where you do need to put yourself as a priority. You also need to empathize with yourself and put yourself in all the other things that you would also do for other people. So yeah, I feel like it's a massive journey of self. Like loving yourself will bring in the love on the outside. And there's actually a really good exercise that I thought to do after reading a book called A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. And the book basically talks about how love is like the center of everything. And it feels like it's very like wishy-washy, but I believe it to be true. Is my decision based on love or is it based on fear? And what you realize is that when you are saying things in fear, you then begin to hold back because you realize that it's actually you're acting in the opposite way that you want to. So it then begins to reformulate how you react to decisions or when you decide to not react at all. So now we are finishing off the design and we are putting top coat on everything. And sometimes the design can look a bit like super bobbly and rubbish. And then you put on the top coat and it just like evens out all the layers. So that is the set completely done. done. My first video is finished. But definitely subscribe, follow me on Instagram, and I hope you have an amazing Valentine's Day, whether you're with someone alone or just loving your self.
Baby, I like your style.